Well, hello there. Shit. Okay, it's very nice to see you all. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Lauren, and I look forward to our conversation. I don't love the bio because it always sounds so, so many wonderful words to showcase somebody's personality, but in like a paragraph, it does nothing. So I guess I push play to begin this. It works. Hey, technology, guys. So, nice to see you all. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's lovely to be here. Honestly, this is a pretty wonderful festival. I mean, good people, good place, and I got to bring my family. So, yeah, family! So, why play? Well, because it's fun, right? There's nothing quite as, it's quite inspiring to be able to do things that keep your brain occupied, but also give you a smile at the same time. There's also something very important, which is we tend to learn through play. We've always been learning through play. It's how we, at the age of 1, 2, 3, 4, became who we are today. That is something that we may as well continue doing throughout our lives. We are, by our very natures, on a path of evolution and learning, and play is the kind of tool to unlock that. So I began in South Africa, where I studied fine arts. I became a sculptor, and that thing over there is a big bug suit that I made as a sculpture with articulating wings and mandibles that I could put my hands in and sort of wave around like a crazy person. But I had to do something with it in order to get a mark because it was a sculpture that just had no purpose. And my professors were very unimpressed with me. And so for the first time I thought, well, why don't I just get into this thing and walk around the city and see what happens? And why am I telling you this? Because first of all, it was a crazy notion to even think that I could walk around looking like a half bug wearing another kind of suit underneath. But the most important thing I took away from it was you create a shared moment between yourself and all the people who are witnessing this bizarre act. Because it is freaking weird, right? Walking around with this big metal thing going, I can't fly. But that shared moment of weird, bizarre magic was a really important one for me because being playful in public created that. Moving on, I was able to learn how to infuse sculptures with electronics, electromechanics, light, so that they could have their own personalities. It no longer needed me inside of them, but they could sort of perform for themselves. That really was exciting. Suddenly you can put the personality into the machine. And so down the line, I started this company called Hirsch Mann. The name we can talk about another time, ask me about it later. But it is called an experiential innovation studio, which is where we create moments of magic to be shared with our partners and their audiences worldwide. And honestly, I've been so fortunate to be able to continue this expression of play through the work that we've done over the last few years. For example, we've taken conductive ink and created these sort of circuits that people can construct and then wear as masks on their faces. We've created these sort of, this is a shield, a breastplate made for a robot that moved around a gamer's house for whatever reason. But if you look at that, that's like a series of puzzle piece LEDs we had to make. And then you try to address those LEDs and make an actual image you can recognize. And guess what? That image is unrecognizable because it turns out it's quite hard. But having the guts to try something like that and give it a shot is where the play comes into it. Taking some melodies and sticking them into a set of Converses. Honestly, the coolest Converses I've ever seen in my life, but I could never wear them because there's batteries and LEDs inside of them, but you don't see that from the outside. It looks kind of cool. Inviting others to participate in the playful expression and exploration of things and seeing what's inside of their heads is actually quite a big part of this process. And then finally, there's no audio on this, but you can actually hear somebody playing this glorious, listen to those sounds. Wow, now that's music, eh? But it's music using a tattoo that we got people to put on themselves, and then they could actually, that's good enough, man, we can kill that sound. But this is the first time, at least that I knew of, that somebody had made a kind of electronically controllable, like a tattoo that you could wear that could do something. That was quite exciting as a moment. Oh, you have to do it twice. The playfulness of going through the product development process from hand-soldered to first stage prototype to complete prototype. Turns out it's also a gaming device, so I mean, play imbued inside of it, naturally. And then, of course, taking dough, Play-Doh. We all love Play-Doh. You don't realize it, but the moment that you start touching that stuff, you're like, oh my God, this is the best. It feels weird in my hands. It's amazing. But guess what? It can conduct electricity. And so you can build circuits with it. And you can invite parents and children to play together and not just make cool things like that snail turn on, but also learn how to build a circuit at the same time, which is pretty cool. Goofiness, very important, both for your team, yourself and your son. I had to put that picture in, he's so cute. Play doesn't only have to be goofy, it can be elevated. It can be elegant. It can connect you to the cosmos. And this was for a kind of a product concept which was meant to take you as a wearer of this crazy looking ring and connect you to a star up in the sky, in the space. And every time the Earth rotated and you were closest to that star, it would tell you, hey, you're close to your star. Have a moment, reflect on that. And then when you're furthest away from that star, as the Earth rotates, it reminds you again. By the way, you're very far away from your star. And the truth is, it's literally a meaningless amount of space considering the distances, but that's not the point. The point is that moment of magic that you have for yourself, a personal moment. Plus, we get to build crazy-looking little jigsaw puzzle, three-dimensional circuit boards, and then cast light through Meteor in order to try and really make that connection clear to the cosmos. And then, of course, you realize you've put the whole thing inside of a hermetically sealed gold sphere. No communication comes out of a gold sphere like that. So that was quite an interesting challenge to address. Playing with light. Oh my God, I love light. We love light. We can't help ourselves. It is so beautiful and expressive. And to be able to take something as analog as a little ring to kind of carve that light as you rotate it, I mean, it feels very Burning Man, let's be honest. So let's talk about evolution. As a creative entrepreneur, and I'm sure there are many of those sorts of people here, we tend to face this kind of reckoning. Oh, I'm a designer, I'm a maker. Whoa, can you hear that? I can hear it. Reverb, maybe I walk away. Hello? Reverb? Reverb? No reverb. So we have this reckoning as creative entrepreneurs. Do we continue doing the thing that we love doing? The design, the making, the expression, the coding, the presentations? Or do we learn how to run the business? How do we focus on maintaining the kind of the thread that made the business begin in the first place throughout that kind of transition from maker creator to administrator manager? And that is a really meaningful challenge that I know many of us have faced. And I am 100% still at the beginning of that journey. Honestly, I'll tell you in a moment how. What I find really interesting, and I'm sure you've all faced this, is we have this thing called the superego that sort of says to you, hey, you know, you were thinking about evolving, doing something different. No, that's crazy. You just don't be risky. Stay the way you are. Do the thing you're confident and good at. Don't do that new thing. Thank you, self-sabotage. Thank you so much for raising your high hand and saying, I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to keep you the way you are. But the truth is that once you recognize that that's what's happening, it gives you an opportunity to say, well, thank you for that recognition. You're right, I don't want to change. I'm going to hire somebody who can do that work for me and I'll never have to change. I can be that creative person for the rest of my life and never evolve. Or you can say, how do I imbue that kind of work, the operating part of the business? How can I find a way to ensure play is at the core of what we do and how we are a platform for play as a business? By the way, I have not solved that problem. I'm 100% at the beginning of that journey, but for the first time I've recognized that I'm the one getting in my own way in this process. And so I wanted to share some of the expressions that we've been able to do when the platform of play is imbued in the organization. So with this, we created a series of these, what looks like the inside of an amethyst geode, but instead of it being purple, of course, it's a whole bunch of reflective mirror-like surfaces. And we've got LEDs inside of it as well. It reflects light from the inside out. It reflects people moving past. It reflects the things in front of it. It's just a smorgasbord of reflective madness, but it's beautiful to see. Not only that, from the back, you can see this really beautiful shell, this sort of elevated, high-quality, elegant, light almost, high-level materials that kind of enclose the thing. So it isn't this big, massive object or sculpture, but something that's quite, refined. That was the intention. Something that we could also build and take apart and then display in different places in the world. So it wasn't a build once, throw away, but build once and transport to the next location to re-show it. Because just because it's been seen in one city doesn't mean it can't be seen, given the same amount of love and attention in other cities in the future. How do we get there from a crazy visual like this, which means nothing? This is crazy. This doesn't make any sense at all. It's like a whole bunch of crazy colors and shapes that somehow our partners were like, yeah, that's cool, let's do that. Then, of course, you have to figure out how to make it. You go through a process of figuring out the geometries. How can something actually be held upright? You then come up with something that starts to make sense for yourself. And, of course, you can modify it so it's all the different shapes can change through each of the windows. And then you work with partners to do a design engineering activity where you then unpack each of the different individual modules, see if you can just make 2 modules in total that can be repeated like Lego bricks to create all sorts of different forms. You then construct those into the 4 different sculptural shapes that you end up wanting to put into those windows. That tells you exactly how many of each unit you need to produce. You then go through the process of validating that, seeing can you put the LEDs inside of there, does it look good, does it even work the way you imagined it would? Finally, you go into production. Oh, production, man, so much fun to watch production happen. Sometimes get your hands dirty. They normally tell you to leave because you're in the way. First time you see these vacuum-formed, vacuum-metallized, simple, thin, wafer-thin pieces of plastic, they are extraordinary, and they do what you imagined they would, or perhaps better than you did, and that's exciting. You take your children because you need to see your children and make sure that they experience all of this as well as you. They have no idea why it's cool, but it's so cool to see them there. Constructing it the first time, seeing it come to life, taking shape, realizing the mistakes on the electronics, realizing the perfection of the mechanics. And then you see it come to life in reality. And I know this is a beautiful picture, but I'll tell you something. I look at this and all I see is that journey. And that journey is where the joy comes from. It is unbelievably fun. Speaking of joy, this is the joy jacket. The person who wears the joy jacket shares the joy of eating chocolate with everybody outside of the joy jacket. Hello, I'm eating chocolate. Please smile. Series of transformations that were meant to share that joy of eating chocolate with all the people in front of that person. And then you have to prototype and figure out how the hell do you build something like that. And so we could see when you were eating chocolate, perhaps doesn't really work so easily because you actually have to then get the sensor in the right place. You have to make transformations that will, say hello to people, but that's a little creepy, so don't do that. Then you want to see if you can draw attention to those transformations, so LEDs are always a good win for that. You see what a growth looks like as it emerges from the side of the jacket. Also a little parasitic, let's not do that. And then this was a great way to actually finally prove we knew when somebody was eating chocolate because there was a camera looking for purple and brown near the face as well as a bend sensor in the arm. Voila, chocolate being eaten. Nothing says joy like a confetti explosion. Just look at his face. Joy. And of course, origami epaulettes, a lovely surprise and delight moment that nobody would have expected. This is the project management. It doesn't look like project management, but I'll tell you something, it made sense to everyone. My project manager was like, I'm not even trying to make this more controlled than this. And a little video showing some of it coming together. I'm not going to watch the whole thing because this is not the purpose of this chat. Oopsies, I went too far. Back. There.
Check your left pocket.
I just want to see her come to life there. Yeah, there were speakers in it. It was talking to her the whole time. It was quite funny. Yes, LEDs everywhere. She manages to open it and then slightly... Oh, wait, wrong one. There we go. Not as creepy, right? Was it creepy? A little bit. It's a little creepy. Anyway, okay, we're not going to watch the rest of it. There's a confetti bomb. It happens. It's awesome. Anyway, so play doesn't always have to be that kind of crazy and goofy. It can also be a bit more refined and something permanent. So this is something we created for a research building in Cornell Medical University in the Upper East Side in Manhattan. It is meant to showcase the research happening inside the building with the people outside the building. And it's made up of about 2,800 LCD screens instead of LEDs, because LEDs, you know, sometimes, I love light, but they do suck sometimes, because everything looks like an LED these days. And so we took these square LCDs, or TFTs, whatever you want to call them, but we did something quite exciting and unexpected. We put a lens in front of them, and that changed everything dramatically. Just a little bit of play with optics, and it literally completely transformed this concept. But of course, we had to figure out how to make those LCDs controllable on a large scale simultaneously. So of course, building the electronics for that. I mean, I love this picture because it just shows how chaotic electronics are before they become products. And that's what I'm talking about. You take that little tiny square thing, and you put a Fresnel lens in front of it, and it transforms it into something almost three-dimensional. I love that kind of unexpected effect. Then you produce the whole thing, and it looks kind of awesome. Looks great from a distance, and when you go closer to it, you realize that there's information in each one of those cells, so it's about the research process. From the outside, you see one thing, you get closer, you can read information about that story. But then you do things that your client, your partner would never allow you to do, like disco mode and, you know, rainbow ripples, you know. But the reason you do that is to figure out how fast can we pump data into this so that we can actually make it into a display that can continually evolve. Is it possible to do it at 20 frames per second, 24 frames per second? In the end, it turns out 20 was our max, but honestly, that's way fast enough. Then you start to say to yourself, what does the data that comes with on the flash memory look like if you were to visualize that on screen? So from the factory, these images you're seeing here, this is what was stored on the memory from factory. Nobody programmed them, it just came like that. But that gave us a great idea. We can use this to create these bitmap overlays, which would allow us to disintegrate and dissolve text live in front of people at 20 frames per second. So again, discoveries that were unexpected, leading to a really intentional outcome. And this moment is one of my favorites of almost all the projects we've done. It turns on like bubbles coming out of a pond, and then you have this digital rain that drops down from above as each of the images resolve themselves in sequence. Love that. Nobody sees it, except you guys. No, yes, exactly. So, thank you so much. I mean, it should bow, right? Anyway, it does work, yes, exactly. That's honestly the moment. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So a couple of things that we created in, again, Soho in New York, a series of experiences specifically for this kind of pop-up space. The first one is this thing called the Pixel Wall. You know, we literally went from a prototype in a month to production in 2 months to installation. So that was insane, but it was okay because it worked in the end. And what we did was we created this, I mean, this is one of my favorite images of it. Again, nobody would normally see this when it's not electronically controlled at all, and people could just go up to it and rotate the pixels and create their own images with it. And that sort of direct engagement was so freaking cool, but not its purpose. Don't touch. Because if you touch, you break it. But in the end, it really was quite a transformational thing. The magnetism, the attraction, the movement, the way that it sucks people in, it really was beautiful to watch. And all of these transformations happened when nobody were looking at it. We were just programming and testing and figuring out which of the transformations we liked the most. And then ultimately, they became the transitions between one phase and another phase of the piece. Now, we're literally in the middle of producing a new version of it in the studio because it's something it's like a brain worm. It's been stuck in our brains since we did that project, and we've been wanting it to evolve all this time, and now we've done it. Can't wait to see the new version of it. What happens when you have a whole bunch of LCDs on a grid, and then you take it and you transform it, you lay it around a sphere, you end up with this crazy thing. But on the inside is that. What the hell is that? It's a beautiful sculpture in its own right. Forget the screens. You don't need screens. You just need a whole bunch of cables and a weird kind of metallic round thing. I love that. Again, maybe I'm not so into the digital stuff, but I'm more into the physical things without the digital. I'm not too sure. discovery that we made when we allow the transformations of each of the different visuals across this entire surface in sequence, you can see how it transforms the space. The architecture is affected by, in this case, 218 screens simultaneously. Never imagined that would be the case, but it was. And that informed projects that we did later down the line. This one particularly. So this is the last one I'm going to share, and I promise you I'll keep quiet after that until questions. And with this, we had 100 square meters of LED that we proposed, by the way, because there was an escalator with a wall behind it with like that much space. There was not much space to do anything that much more dynamic. So the dynamism had to come from the content, from the stuff that we were kind of displaying on that. And remember how I said the architecture can be transformed by the artwork you create? Well, the whole point of this is a retail space, fashion retail. There are shiny polished surfaces everywhere, there are mirrors everywhere, there's even some sort of diffused brushed metal everywhere. And guess what happens when you have something on this scale in that space? It reflects everywhere. So anything you do on that scale will become a part of the architecture. It's not just a big flat wall. And I love that about this project. With this, the idea was to create something that would flow following somebody up and down the escalator. And how could we do that in a way that didn't have people jumping up and down on that escalator? Because you don't want to introduce an interaction that could kill someone. That would be bad. So we did it in a way that was a bit more abstract, not so obvious. But then you have to figure out how do you code that to be a real-time generative piece of fabric or cloth or thread that can automatically follow a human being up and down an escalator? Well, you work with partners who are spectacularly good at that, because we're good at some things and they're good at other things. And we came up with some really quite extraordinary and expressive, generative, real-time pieces of code. You can sort of see what we were trying to figure out over there on the top right. And then in the end, it looked like this. You can actually see how it pinched and sort of followed somebody going up the escalator. I'm not going to make you watch any more videos on that, but one of the unexpected outcomes was when you have this exact same code and then you put a 3D form within it and you say, hey, I'm going to blow some variables of turbulence over that. Let's see what happens. And I mean, that looks like wind with fabric over a physical object generated in real time by code. I don't know, I still find that amazing. Maybe I'm weird. And now I think I'm going to pause there and give you guys a moment to just take a deep breath. Because I feel like that was a bit of a marathon, if I'm honest. Because what we should all be aiming for is that. That is the joy we should live every single day. It doesn't mean you should all eat ice cream all the time. You can. I'm not going to stop you. It's not super healthy. Be careful. Do more exercise. Exercise is good. But that joy, that sheer happiness, the play that our young people have every single day, why are we not living that every single day as well? Why are we not sharing that every single day? So Jason said yesterday, he used this phrase, rhapsodic downloads of wow. And it was like, boom, it kind of hit me in the face. I was like, that's what I do. How did he know? But I love that concept, this idea that we can have a moment which really causes that on other people for a moment, just for a moment. It changes them. It gets left with them. And I think we should all be striving for at least opportunities to be able to do that. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. I'll speak to you later.